Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janabalaba Girdvaradhari. Gopi Janabalaba Girdvaradhari. Sodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janabalaba Girdvaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janabalaba Girdvaradhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupam Sapadarajikacharya Stotersata Sisimat A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupam Sapadarajikacharya Stotersata Sisimat Bhaktivedanta Sasita Gaur Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasri Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tonight, we're going to assume that you are all atheists. You never thought of yourself in that way, did you? Well, you've got some choices tonight. Either you can be an atheist, or you can be what is called an apatheist. Apatheist is a new term for those who are apathetic about God or religion or spiritual life, meaning they never think about it, couldn't care less. Most of Australia and New Zealand is like that. To be an atheist, that means you have to vigorously accept the belief that there is no supreme controller. Most people in the world can never do that. In fact, sociological surveys have shown that maybe only 13% of the world is actually full-on atheistic, meaning there's nothing spiritual, everything is just matter, that's it. Only 13% of the world's population. What is the fastest growing religion in the world? The nuns, they're called. N-O-N-E-S. Not N-U-N-S, but N-O-N-E-S. No religion. Never think about it. If you're from India and you're trying to understand Australian society, that's basically what's going on. Nuns. No religion. Apatheistic. Never thought about it. Now, why would you want to be theistic? Why would you want to live a God-centered life and consider yourself to be a devotee of Krishna. Tonight and tomorrow night, we'll be exploring this phenomenon of why you would want to be what others call a true believer. Is your position scientific? Is your position based on analytical thought? Or are you just accepting what's been handed down to you by previous generations? Maybe you're all just bound culturally, ethnically, to accept certain assumptions and conclusions. Maybe by your accepting those assumptions, your social life is better. Why? Let's first consider some materialistic explanations for why persons supposedly accept that there is a Parameswar, supreme controller. Because, you see, what's happening is that some people are thinking religion provides some good social benefits of people coming together and sharing, helping each other in time of grief, helping each other in time of celebration. So therefore, why can't we have those social benefits without a God? So in the UK and in Australia and a few countries of the world, so-called churches are popping up in which people go on Sunday to just get together and celebrate this one life that's all. No need of God. Now just think, could it be that some reason for your attachment to Krishna consciousness can simply be because, well, it gives life meaning, you come together for celebrating this and grieving about that. Social purposes. Many Hindu temples operate in that way. There's no distribution of knowledge of the science of God, but it's a nice social place. On the altar are pictures of many gods, whatever. That means that people from all different kinds of belief groups in India can utilize that place. It covers all the various personalities. What is special about this group here is our chance to understand and practice and experience the science of the Supreme. If all we're doing is giving mundane social support, then we have failed. Bhakti is the rarest opportunity to understand the science of the Supreme, to practice it and experience the results. So you have that opportunity, but perhaps we're not taking full advantage of that opportunity. Perhaps we're going with the flow. Well, this is what my parents did, or this is what my grandparents did. This is what I need to do in order to be a good person, and I want the children to be good persons. So therefore, I participate for the social benefits. However, many social scientists are pointing out that you can get the same social benefits without God. You don't have to put anything in the hundi. And you get the social benefits. So why not arrange human society in that way? First of all, there's the surveillance theory that in primitive times of the human race, thousands of years ago, there were many primitive gods that people believed in. Gods were everywhere, in the forest, in the mountains, in the oceans, or in the thunderbolts. So every tribe had its rival god. But such notions, the idea is, were not good for complex societies. Supposedly, as societies became more complex, they required bigger gods, called interventionist gods, beyond just the tribal or nature gods. So therefore, the theory is that big religions like Christianity or Islam, Judaism, they came about because they advocated a super surveillance God who was watching everyone. A God who was all-knowing and all-remembering. He'll remember all the mistakes you did. And he would intervene. So these social scientists say that as these big surveillance gods became popular, society was able to grow more complex. Because you see, in a village, in a tribal enclave or agricultural village, everyone knows each other. But in a complex society, you don't know everyone that you're dealing with. Therefore, the theory goes, you require a God who sees everywhere and everyone. Why? Because the theory is a watched people are nice people. In other words, human beings have to be monitored. Otherwise, they're not very nice. So because society is so big and people don't know each other, you need a big God, a big surveillance God. So that is some social scientists' theory of why monotheism or belief that there is a Parameswara, a supreme controller, came about due to social necessity. Psychological surveys have shown that actually people don't trust atheists. Why is that? They don't trust atheists because they think, you don't believe you're being monitored, so how can I trust you? You don't understand that you're under surveillance. Therefore, you'll do anything. You're not held accountable by the supreme surveillance personality. We all believe in God. We know that we're being watched. Otherwise, we would certainly do a lot of wrong things. But because our parents told us we're being watched, that's why we're good. But you're an atheist. What have you got that's going to restrain you? How can you be a nice person when you don't accept that you're monitored? So the notion is that society has instilled this belief in you so that you'll be good persons. God is watching you. He's in your heart. He knows what you're thinking. And by your believing that, society can actually be orderly and tidy. That's the theory. But then what happened, supposedly? Supposedly what happened is that human societies became stable and orderly and with a strong police force and traffic enforcement and, well, not traffic enforcement in all countries, but I always said that there's a few countries in the world that if the government would simply enforce traffic ordinances, the government could reap a fortune. So, the idea is that because societies have strong laws and strong police force and so on and so forth, therefore societies now can become stable and orderly without God. So, these social scientists are saying, no need anymore. God is old-fashioned, outmoded. Just like here in Australia, you've come here, most of you, you've come to Australia. You see, religion is very insignificant, but yet it's a well-ordered society. That gets you thinking, doesn't it? In India, everyone supposedly believes in God, and there's chaos. And here in Australia, no one believes in God, and how do you say it? The infrastructure is very nice, right? That's always the term used, the infrastructure. So, what to do? In the land of Dharma, there's so much chaos. In the land of adharma, everything is nice and stable. So therefore, especially those under 30 years old, even though they're from Bharat, they're starting to think, right? What is this latest movie that's out now that's broken all records in India? PK, just totally. How many have seen it? Raise your hands. It's come to Australia, or you can download it, or what? Huh? Oh, you saw it when you were in India? So, I've been told, Nityananda Priya, he told me, this movie has grossed more money than anything else in any other Bollywood production. It's all about making fun of dharma and religion, deities and sadhus. And in the land of dharma, this is the most popular film ever. So what we're dealing with is a situation in which we will easily think prosperity is possible without accepting the Parameswara, the Supreme Controller. You can look at things from another angle, the individual development angle. Some social scientists say that because everything happened by evolution, that theory, there's something called the cognitive byproduct theory, that aspects or elements of human psychology developed that somehow or other had a side benefit for accepting religion. Although these evolutionary developments of human psychology are not directly about accepting religion, but somehow or other byproduct. People became inclined towards religion. All because of evolution, which teaches you that from matter arises life and consciousness. Where did the original matter come from? No one knows. And no one's ever seen matter give rise to life and consciousness, but it's a good theory, they think. So, if there is no God, then you have to account for people's religious feelings, because it seems so natural that people accept a supreme being. If they don't understand, for example, the science of Krishna, the most comprehensive, profound spiritual knowledge, then they'll worship a tree, they'll worship an ocean or a mountain as God. So somehow this trait, this characteristic has come to human beings. So what could have brought this about? So some scientists have another fancy term. We've heard about the cognitive byproduct theory, that riding on the coattails of some other evolutionary development came favorable reception for God. There's something else called the hypersensitive agency detection device. What does this mean? Hypersensitive agency detection device. It means that supposedly when human beings were just living in the bushes as primitives, it was an evolutionary advantage that if you heard some movement of the bushes, you would immediately think that there's some predator animal about to pounce on you. So through evolution, supposedly, you became very sensitive whenever you would hear a sound of leaves moving or trees moving. There must be an entity, an agency that's causing this. So because that became an evolutionary advantage to protect yourself from being gobbled up by a tiger or a lion, now that same hypersensitive agency detection device manifests as thinking there's a God behind everything. You think that behind all of nature there's a God because in your primitive state of humanity, you thought every time a tree made a sound, there was a tiger behind it. So now you've become more sophisticated and you think behind the cosmos is God. Can you believe people actually, scholars spend a lot of time dreaming up this terminology? So, what kind of atheist are you? There are different types of atheists. What category do you want to choose for tonight? The first category is called analytical atheists. An analytical atheist supposedly is one who, through logic and reason, has come to the conclusion that there is no God. Through a lot of thought and racking of the brain, mental speculation in its worst way, they've come to the conclusion. Through education, there is no supreme. There is no soul. Maybe some of you here, because of your education, have been challenged. You're living in like a schizophrenic world. On the one hand, you have your ties to the dharmic culture of India. Yet on the other hand, you've been educated in so many applied sciences. So how do you connect the two? So an analytical atheist is someone who's actually thought, I don't see any God. It's just all stories. But that's only one type of atheist. There's another type called the coerced atheist. Persons who grow up in societies like the former Soviet Union or North Korea, where the government enforces official policy of atheism. So, there's analytical atheism, there's coerced atheism, and then there's what's called organic atheism. Organic atheism means you just kind of, you don't think about it so much, but you just go with that kind of flow. You know, it's almost like atheism, apathy. Just irrelevant, you know. Spiritual things just don't matter to me. I'm living life. Why do I need to even deal with such questions? It's called organic atheism. It's a part of just the way you're living, like breathing, eating. You don't see any God, I don't see any God. Let's just go to the pub. Turn on the TV, watch the cricket match. Leave it at that. So obviously our audience here cannot support such positions. But why? Why can't you? We want to challenge you tonight. What do you know that is different from these positions? Various atheisms or atheism. What do you know that's different? Maybe just out of cultural habit, maybe just out of cultural tradition, you're accepting. Sometimes people become confused. Why are there so many different types of spiritual books, spiritual teachers? Why? Spiritual paths. It becomes so confusing, it seems. Sometimes witty fellows say that how can all the different religions be true? It's not possible. But let's look at things from a different perspective. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, actually the main theologian of bhakti for the 20th century, explains that because the type of consciousness people have is different, therefore their conceptions of what is God are different. Not only are their conceptions of what is God different, but also their ways of worship are different. The world is full of all different kinds of people, different languages, different dress, different customs and habits. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur explains that, therefore, you'll find different religions. Although any genuine religion accepts that there is the Parameshwar, the Supreme Controller, you'll find different visions of that Supreme Controller. And those different visions are because of different cultures. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur says you should not become confused by that. You should be able to see the different levels of God realization. So he's presented different motivations for persons to accept the Supreme or something in place of the Supreme. First of all, there's bhaya, fear. You accept that there is the Supreme because you're afraid of what will happen to you if you don't. You accept that there's a Supreme because you're afraid of death or you're afraid of suffering. You're afraid of punishment. You're afraid of bad karma. So that is the first reason that someone would be a theist. Someone would accept the existence of God simply out of fear. For example, As a little boy, when I went to the Christian church on Sunday, and they taught us Bible verses, I remember one verse, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. They taught all the children that. We would agree, yes. The Vaishnavas would agree the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but it's not the end of wisdom. But in the Bhaya category, all you know is fear. I don't want to be punished. I don't want to be caught up in distress. I'd better pray to God. Maybe some of you are in that category. What will happen to me if I don't believe in God? A lightning bolt will strike me down. Some of the younger men here may remember when you first came to Australia and you tried some of the local habits. You deviated a bit and did something a bit degraded, and then afterwards, no lightning bolt has hit me. Hey, just see. Right? The thought came to you that I got away with this. I've got nothing to fear. So anyway, the Bhaya category is quite prevalent. Approach God because you're afraid of what he'll do to you if you don't approach him. In the Mediterranean religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, this fear is very important. If you don't bow down, you'll be zapped by a lightning bolt from God. You're sinners in the hand of an angry God. So that's the Bhaya category. What's the next category? Asha. Hopes, desires. You turn to God as a theist because you want your material desires fulfilled. You're greedy. Oh God, give me this. Oh God, give me that. You know that popular mantra, give me Lakshmi, 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 and a house by the sea, Jai Jagadisha Hare. So that's the Asha category. You approach God because you're greedy for material happiness, for material success, for material prosperity. Both the Bhaya category and the Asha category, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur says, are very low in terms of the scale of spiritual development. He calls them primitive. But most people today, if they are theists, if they accept the Parameshwar, they're in those categories, Bhaya or Asha. Dhruva Maharaj started in what? Yes. He wanted revenge. He wanted a greater kingdom than anyone in his family line. And after all, his great-grandfather was Lord Brahma, but he wanted a greater kingdom than even Brahma. So at 5 years old, he raced into the forest to find Vishnu because his mother had given him the tip. She said, there's someone who's more affectionate than millions of mothers like me. He can fulfill all your desires. Dhruva said, where do I find him? And the mother said innocently, naively, I've heard that great saints and sages go to the forest to find Vishnu. Dhruva was gone. Of course, by following Narada Muni's instructions, Dhruva became purified, so much so that when he actually had the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he lamented about his material desires. He changed then from the Asha category to the Shuddha Bhakti category, the pure Bhakti category. And when the Supreme Personality of Godhead asked Dhruva, what benediction do you want? He said, just give me the association of your pure devotees. I don't want anything material. Swamin katatosmi varam. I'm completely satisfied, my Lord. I don't need any material benediction or donation. The next category, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is called Kartavya Buddhi. That's the duty category. We have a duty to God. We have a commitment. We are duty bound. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out that that category, Kartavya Buddhi, is actually the beneficial category. And our sadhana bhakti is based on Kartavya Buddhi. We are following Krishna's instructions out of duty and commitment. It's like an arranged marriage. The marriage happens out of arrangement by the parents. And then because the couple acts toward each other through traditional duty and commitment, gradually then some real affection starts to develop over the years as their mutual service to one another goes on. So this Kartavya Buddhi category of duty is very important. It's beyond the category of bhaya, fear, and asha, material desire. But there's something higher. That is the raga category, spontaneous attraction. Not because you're following rules, not because you have to, not because of duty, but because like pieces of iron flowing towards a magnet, that's just the way it is. You're spontaneously attracted to Krishna. Like Queen Kunti prays in the first canto of Bhagavatam, Gange Vogam Udanvati. She's praying to Krishna, may my consciousness always be attracted to you, just like the Ganga always flows into the ocean. That's the raga platform. No practice, no duty, just spontaneous attraction for Krishna. Let's consider the different motivations for God worship, for theism, for accepting that there's God. Or not, more precisely, not the different motivations, but the different assumptions, the different conceptions. Some persons are afraid of any kind of variegatedness, any kind of variety, so they say the ultimate is just a void, shunya, zero. The culmination of spiritual perfection is just nothingness. No more individuality, no more identity. Just the end of all the suffering that's caused by being an individual. You become extinct. So those are voidist, shunyavadis. And then there are those who say that everything is ultimately just undifferentiated oneness. That's almost the same as being a voidist. In both cases, there's no eternal individuality, there's no eternal self. There's no variety in the absolute truth. Krishna's activities, Krishna's qualities, they say are just material because spiritual has no qualities, no individualities, no activities. These are Mayavadis. And they can be very popular in India. Anything that's a quality, anything that's an activity, anything that's a personality is Maya. And so they even apply that to Krishna. Krishna's activities, his qualities, they try to be complementary. Krishna's activities and qualities are the highest level of Maya. But beyond those qualities and activities is the impersonal. They're called Mayavadis. What does a Mayavadi mean? The Vad, the truth, they say, is that it's all Maya, except the nonsense they speak. So, some people have the conception of voidism, others have of impersonalism, others think of God as the Father. Now, what is the supposed advantage of thinking that God is the Father? He'll give you things. He becomes your order supplier. So in that way, your bhakti, your attempt at bhakti becomes a way in which you can get what you want. It's like I remember as a little boy, when Christmas came, you know how in Western families they have on Christmas morning, they have the Christmas tree and all the presents underneath the Christmas tree. You don't do it, but you know all about it. You've seen it in the movies, right? So I was just a 6-year-old boy. My brother was 4.5, and my sister was 3 or something. But we knew it's Christmas morning. And so we would wake up extra early at 5 a.m., ready to race downstairs to see all the presents under the Christmas tree. So we would do that. We never got up at 5 a.m. before, but on Christmas morning, yes, to get the presents for us. So we would race downstairs, ready to, because all the presents would be under the Christmas tree, wrapped in wrapping paper with ribbons on and all that kind of thing, you know. You tear off all the wrapping and throw it away. But anyway. So we would race downstairs, and then who would stop us? Mother would come and stop us. Wait. You can't open the presents now. You have to wait until your father gets up. Why do we have to wait till father gets up? So mother would explain, he's taking extra rest today because he doesn't have to work today, and so you can't open the presents until he wakes up because he wants to see the look on your faces as you open the presents. Of course, what kid could understand that? Well, he wants to see the look on our faces when we open the presents. They're our presents, they're not his. He gave them to us. He did his job. He bought us presents, so now we're going to open them. But mother would say, no. You have to wait till your father wakes up at 8 o'clock, and so he can see you opening the presents and he can feel satisfaction and fulfillment. And also with his camera, he can take pictures of you opening the presents. We just didn't like that. We thought, Father is simply supposed to provide. What more does he want? So similarly, when you say God is the Father, you are actually subconsciously, you may not think about it, but subconsciously you're thinking, he is supposed to give us things. And what happens if you feel he doesn't? You get angry. When there's some problem in life, when you hit some impediment, you know who to blame. Even our own devotees will sometimes say, oh, why is Krishna doing this to me? I chanted japa for 1 year and then this happened. I didn't get my PR. I didn't pass the English language test. And all the time I was doing puja, going to the temple, doing service. What's going on? So, this idea of God as the Father can be dangerous. Because if your expectations aren't met, you get frustrated. Just like we little kids, you know. Why can't we open the presents? We became frustrated. Then you can also have a vision of God as the supreme punisher. And then you'll always be fearful. What is special about knowledge of Krishna? Krishna is far beyond being your father. The maintenance of the universe is entrusted to Vishnu. Krishna doesn't directly maintain the universe. Vishnu does. Krishna doesn't directly destroy the universe. Shiva does. Krishna doesn't directly create the universe. Brahma does. What is Krishna doing? Simply enjoying loving affairs with his devotees. And in these loving affairs, Krishna can become your son. And you fulfill Krishna's desires because Krishna is your son. Or Krishna is your friend playing with you in the forest. Or Krishna is your lover. So this is how comprehensive the bhakti knowledge is. Because as long as you think of God as being the master, like in some religions you're taught that God is the master and you are his servant. That is true, that's nice. But that kind of understanding doesn't bring any intimacy. There's a distance between you and God. Like the distance between you and the boss at work, you know? Or if you've been in the armed forces, in the military, the officers are not allowed to fraternize, associate with the ordinary soldiers because it creates familiarity. There has to be this gap, this distance. The officers have their own clubs, their own barracks, different from the regular soldiers, so that there's this awe and reverence. When the officers give a command, it will be acted upon because there's no mixing, free mixing and familiarity. So when there's this predominant conception that God is the master, the enforcer, and you are simply like, you just do what you're told. There's no intimacy and there's no crossing of that gap. Then you look at bhakti, the knowledge of bhakti, and you find that the Supreme can be your friend, your child, your lover. Why is that? If you say that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, what is it that Krishna enjoys? You see, knowledge of Krishna is far beyond accepting God as the creator, the destroyer, the maintainer. One reason why secularization is expanding and people are losing their religious feeling is because they actually have no idea how the Supreme enjoys. So why do you want to be with the Supreme if the Supreme doesn't enjoy? Right? If you want to enjoy, just go to some party, go to a pub, go to the movies. But if you go to the Supreme, if you go to God, what happens? So people say, I'd rather just have a good time with sinful activities. Where's the pleasure in associating with God? All right, he created the world. He maintains all living entities. But where's the enjoyment in that? It sounds like work. Why do I want to be with someone who simply works all the time? But when we understand the science of Krishna, we see that the only thing that Krishna does directly is enjoyment. Where else do you find this understanding of the Supreme? Nowhere else. Everywhere else you see a very vague understanding of what is the Parameshvara, the Supreme Controller. But when you understand Krishna, you see that Krishna is doing things far beyond controlling. If you look at yourself as a tiny sample of God, you know there's no fun in controlling constantly. Human beings don't like to simply control. That's why you'll see even big men, powerful men in leading roles in society. They come home and they tell their wife, dear, just tell me whatever you want. I'll do whatever you say. Because they're tired of controlling. They want to come under her control. Just like one of my godbrothers who's been married for 35, 40 years. He told me, you know, Maharaj, in my marriage, I always get the last word. Yes, dear. So, it shows, you know, even you may be a great man, but sometimes you want to come under the control and enjoy in that way. So why is it that Krishna says simply control? We've already discussed how Krishna is far beyond creating, maintaining, and destroying the universe. But Krishna is even beyond controlling. He relishes coming under the control of his pure devotees. I've often told the story of how once I was at the airport in Melbourne, waiting to catch a flight to Sydney, and I was at the gate, and there were maybe 4 gates together, and there was maybe 100 people waiting, some sitting, some standing. And I saw this well-dressed businessman. Looked like he was maybe 40 years old. He had his family with him, his wife, and he had a little daughter. She was like 4 years or 5 years old. And the whole family was sitting there. And all of a sudden, the little girl would stand in front of her father and point to the floor. Down, Daddy, down. And the man would fall off the chair onto the ground on his back. Well-dressed businessman. And then he would get up and sit down again. And again the girl would say, down, Daddy, down. And he would fall on the floor. This went on for about 15 minutes. And hundreds of people are watching. And they're all smiling. Oh, this is very nice. Such nice family life. Right? You would say that too, right? Right? Oh, affectionate father. He's showing his daughter how much he loves her. This is very nice. But you see, he's an executive, but he's loving to come under the control of his little girl. To do whatever she says. All day long, he's in the office giving orders. And then he's relishing a few moments of being controlled by his daughter's love. So much so he falls on the floor. He's wearing his suit, but he's falling on the floor like that. And hundreds of people are watching. He doesn't care. He's absorbed in the relationship with the daughter. He doesn't care that people are watching. And of course, the people are watching, they're approving. Oh, yes, this is very nice. This is family life, how it used to be in Australia. We hope they stay together, even though statistics show that they won't stay together. So, another example from Canberra. You may have heard me say this example before. I was doing a program at a wealthy gentleman's house. His children were growing up in Australia, but of course, he and his wife, they were from Gujarat. So his daughter was about 7 years old. So the man was telling me how one day his daughter came home from school, his 7-year-old daughter, and said to him, "Daddy, when are you and Mother going to live in separate houses like all the other persons in my class?" I'm the only one in my class who I can't spend one weekend at Mommy's house and one weekend at Daddy's house. When are you going to have your own house and Mommy has her own house like everyone else in my class? So she didn't understand. Out of love for her father and mother, she thought that that's the way they're supposed to act, that they're supposed to be in separate houses, because everyone in her class is like that. So, of course, the father had to explain to her that the real standard for a family is that mother and father are in the same house, because his daughter was picking up these influences. So, if you say that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, which is a step beyond saying that Krishna is the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer, if you accept that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, then tell me, what does he enjoy? He's not working. He's not creating, maintaining, and destroying. So what is it that he enjoys? Well, what is it that you enjoy? More than anything, human beings enjoy relationships. And they're so distraught and distressed when there are relationship problems. It's happening even in India, relationship problems. You can understand something of God by considering yourself as a tiny sample of God, by considering yourself as a drop of seawater that has all the qualities of the ocean, but not the quantity of the ocean. The Vedas say that this is an authorized method of self-realization, of enlightenment. Anor aniyan mahato mahiyan. The Supreme Absolute Truth is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. So as the living entity, the Supreme Absolute Truth is smaller than the smallest. If you look at the tiny living entity, you'll see many of the qualities that are there unlimitedly in the Supreme. So when you want to enjoy, you want relationships. How many of you have had the experience of trying to do something relishable, but you were all alone? You could do it a little bit, a walk through nature alone, watching your so-called favorite television show or movie alone, even watching a cricket match alone. There's something missing, right? There's no taste. That's why people go to sports bars, sports pubs, to watch sports matches, and They go to movies and clubs together. They go to family events together. They go to weddings together because of relationships. That's the real way that you enjoy. In the company of others. Family, friends, workmates. Because you're a particle of the Supreme, and this is how you enjoy, why is it so faulty or mythological to think that the Supreme does not enjoy through relationships? If we say that all your relationships are mythological, you feel insulted. Why are you worried about your family? It's all a myth. Ooh, oh, family is very important. Why are you worried about your friends? It's all a myth. Why do you care what your wife or husband says? It's all mythological. You feel very insulted. No, Swami, this is not proper. But if I say Krishna's family, Krishna's friends, Krishna's relationships, we don't know about that. This is the bias. Our relationships are for real, even though they're based on the temporary body, and Krishna's relationships are myth, even though they're based on the eternal spiritual body. This is the fallacy. This is the mistake in our thought. We deny relationships in the Supreme Absolute Truth. We think it's myth. Krishna is the Hindu forest love god. Who dances with others' wives. You can have as many wives as you like, but Krishna can't have anything. This is our problem. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everyone is Krishna's part. Yet when Krishna dances, when Krishna has friends and lovers, we think, oh, it's mythological. Meanwhile, you're paying so much money to watch Bollywood movies all about people having friends and lovers. Right? But Krishna can't have any friends and lovers, even though that's what you want so much. So we are biased by prejudice against Krishna having relationships, even though relationships are the most important thing in our life. Persons become impersonalists or voidists because they think, I had so much trouble from relationships in this world, therefore perfection must be no relationships, no personalities, no individualities. The example Srila Prabhupada would always give is that you were in a car accident and all your limbs are broken, your arms and legs are broken, you're laying in a hospital bed, broken arms, broken legs. So you say, oh, these arms and legs are giving me so much trouble. The solution is no arms, no legs. No, what is the solution? That your arms and legs should heal, and you use them properly. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita teaches you that the solution is not to declare there's no individuality, no personality, no relationships. The solution is to have healthy relationships, healthy personality, healthy individuality. So that's what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita. Relationships, personality, and individuality in perfection. But we'll never understand that perfection if we deny Krishna's enjoyment. You won't deny your enjoyment. You like it when family and friends are there. And everyone dreams of the ideal spouse. Right? Except the brahmacharis here. Right? The ideal spouse who will know what you're thinking even before you think it, right? The ladies will tell you, isn't that what husbands are for? They should know what you feel even before you feel it, right? That's the dream anyway, right? And then the men are dreaming that the ideal wife is someone who knows what the man wants even before he wants it. She's right there. Yes, Prabhu. Right? Isn't that the male dream? And of course, the ladies know. Forget it, right? We want nice relationships. Krishna has the best. That's what it means to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has the best relationships. So tomorrow, we're going to be speaking about the differences in relationships with Krishna. Some are based on awe and reverence, knowledge of Krishna's power, and others are not. And tomorrow we'll talk about what Krishna likes the best. We're going to find out a special term used in Chaitanya Charitamrita, a term that means when there is awe and reverence in your love for Krishna, that awe and reverence cripples your love or shrinks your love. But first, for tonight, we wanted to focus on your being atheists or apatheists, members of the nuns. No religion, none. All right, any questions? Yes.
In the Krishna book, I think the gopis and many other devotees have prayed to Krishna that, oh, we are your eternal servants, and that way, even many pure devotees they think and speak in that way. But you said that, so like even the gopis who have been accepted as the highest devotees, even sometimes they speak that Krishna, we are your servants, like that. So.
Yes, but that when they say we are your servants, that's in pure love that is so intense they don't even think or care to know that Krishna is supreme. They're saying we are your servants, not in terms of an official master and servant relationship, but in pure love, in the intensity of pure romance, we are your servants. Now, if you want to get more knowledgeable, you see in all the relationships with Krishna, whether friendship, parental love, conjugal love, servitude, dasaras runs through all of them. Everyone is actually Krishna's servant. But and we'll talk about this more tomorrow night, at the topmost level of the spiritual world, no one thinks Krishna is God. They just think he is the most attractive and we want to be with him. That's by Krishna's arrangement. We'll speak more about that tomorrow. How, for Krishna's maximum enjoyment, he'd rather you not know he's God. Yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. It was a wonderful lecture. I have one question in my mind that hypothetically, if we think a situation where some people are living either in Alaska or some very difficult to habitate places, where it is very difficult to maintain their daily life.
Living where?
Living Alaska somewhere or somewhere.
Alaska?
Yeah, as a
You've
very
been to
difficult
Alaska?
to habitate. No, I've heard that it is a very cold place.
They say, in Alaska, they say, we've heard India is a very hot place.
Yeah. So my point of view was very difficult climate where people are surviving on their just to maintain their routine life, and they come across with the natural calamities that in their daily life, and they realize that there is a supreme controller who is controlling the difficult situation, gives them the understanding that there is definitely something which is controlling everything. So that's why this kind of diversity has been created in the universe. So for those
This kind of what?
diversity in the different kind of climates and habitation and all those kind of creations have been generated throughout the universe. So such people understand that there is a supreme controller, but let's
When
say,
there's catastrophe.
due to their daily experience, they understood that there is a supreme controller. Okay, so if they have that understanding, but they don't know about Krishna, whether Krishna is the supreme controller, then what we call about such kind of consciousness that human has the understanding of a supreme controller, he lives into that also impression that it is not under, anything is not under my control, or it is always controlled by somebody higher personality, but he doesn't know the name of Krishna, or he is not aware about Krishna. Then
So Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur would say that person is in the Bhaya category. Fear that I should worship God. I don't know what God is, but I should worship God because otherwise there'll be a natural catastrophe, there'll be some distress, I'll be punished.
So they have the openness to accept the Supreme Personality, but they don't understand Krishna.
Right. So they're waiting for you to come and do Sankirtan there. But what were you saying? Oh, it's too cold there. What social scientists have speculated is that even in countries that are apatheistic, just totally apathetic about whether there is God or not, they don't think about it, it's not an issue for them, never crosses their mind. When there is some natural catastrophe, man, and where do they get their statistics from to support this view? New Zealand is a very apatheistic country, even more than Australia. But when there was the Christchurch earthquake in 2011, there was a big noticeable increase in persons taking an interest in God. So social scientists are predicting that if there are going to be problems from climate change, environmental problems, then you'll see people going back to God because they're motivated by distress. But as long as everything is good, then you'll see society becoming more and more secular. Implicit in their assumption is that God is only good for when there's distress. Then people have to have that belief to help them make it through the day. It's a primitive belief, but when you're distressed, you need some kind of, what do you call those things babies put in their mouth? Huh? Dummy or pacifier. Australia, they call them dummies. India, what do they call them? Pacifier, yes. In the U.S., they call them pacifiers. So when there's some natural catastrophe, some social distress on a mass scale, you need the dummy or the pacifier. And that's what religion does. That's what they say. In other words, the demoniac mentality is so foolish that if they see maybe 40 or 50 years when there's no war, they think, oh, everything is nice, we don't need God. Just give them a few decades of so-called peace, and they think, this shows you we don't need God. But then again and again, slam.
Let's
Yes.
say, for argument's sake, that no catastrophes happened after 40 or 50 years.
Use the microphone, please.
Let's say, for argument's sake, that after 40 or 50 years there was no catastrophe and people just continued being atheistic.
No catastrophe where?
Let's say, for argument's sake, theoretically.
Where?
In any society
All
that's atheistic,
Mm-hmm.
let's say there is no catastrophe to bring them back to God and they just continue being atheists.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't they be really, really unhappy in other ways that might bring them back to God? Does it always take a catastrophe?
But how do you measure happiness and unhappiness? How do you measure it?
What I'm trying to ask is, I find that we're, in Australia, for example, we're getting a lot of children committing suicide, we're getting a lot of people committing suicide, they're very unhappy, and even though there are no catastrophes, people are crumbling in on themselves.
No catastrophes? Everyone's getting old, everyone's getting sick, everyone's dying? Isn't that a catastrophe? But if we're so covered by ignorance that we don't see that, then we have failed to make the best use of the human form of life. That means we fail to understand what the real problems are. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanudarshana. Someone who's actually intelligent sees the fault in material existence. What is that fault? That there's birth, death, disease, and old age. Those catastrophes are always there. But when society is drowning in intoxication, people don't worry about that. But if you take all the intoxication away, for example, can you imagine Melbourne with no forms of intoxication available? No alcohol, no drugs, no coffee, no caffeine, nothing. People couldn't live, right? But because they're so intoxicated, they forget about the real problems in life, which are birth, death, old age, and disease, as Krishna points out in Bhagavad Gita. So there are catastrophes all the time, but people are too dull.
Is it kind of like, you know, when you boil frogs?
Speak in the microphone, please.
Is it sort of like when you boil frogs, they stay in the water and they get boiled and die, but if you put them straight into hot water, they jump out?
That's what it means to be a conditioned soul. You're conditioned by material nature to accept ignorance as normal.
So in that case, might catastrophe sometimes be mercy?
The whole of material existence is an opportunity to come to your senses. In that sense, material existence is mercy. But Krishna would rather give you other kinds of mercy. Other questions? Microphone, please.
You know, Maharaj, you were mentioning in the class about devotees, telling that, I have chanted for 1 year.
Mm.
The main purpose
And I didn't get my PR.
Yeah, I know that. It's true. But most of the, according to the age or whatever it is, I don't know, but most of the people come to Krishna consciousness or any, related to God, only when they have serious problem or something which they cannot handle by their own strength.
You've seen that?
Yes.
Was that the case of you?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Not everyone. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says 4 types of persons approach him. Chatravida bhajante mam, jana sukritina arjuna. Krishna says all those 4 types have sukriti, auspicious merit. One type, motivated by distress. Another type, inquisitive. Another type, wanting economic prosperity. Another type, wanting knowledge. They're all meritorious because they're approaching Krishna, even though their motives are not pure.
True, Maharaj, I know this.
So it is true, though, in my informal survey taken in my travels all over the world, most persons approach Krishna because of distress.
No, my question is, these people, they are suffering. Even though they are devotees, right, they have some calamity in their life.
Hmm?
but they are not able to find a solution by themselves. They are trying hard, to come out of that calamity. Some, some not getting a job, or even the example what you said, some not getting a PR. And you see the devotee suffering with that. As a devotee, right, how we should, approach that person, in what way, in what context we can help that person, there is something beyond, it is, we can say in theory, I hear from many devotees, it's because of his bad karma, he's not getting something good happening. But that expectation is there in that person, something good has to happen. The main purpose, I see people, in my experience, right, they come because of some expectation, something good is going to happen to my life. At least I can find some good people here. I can find some loyalty here. At least there is good culture here.
All that is true.
Yeah, that is all true, Maharaj. But when a person comes with such a problem, right, he has a problem, he wants that to be fulfilled. As a devotee, right, how we should look at that person and how we can help that person.
Well, for example, let's say you may call it bad karma that the person is not getting the PR. It actually could be good karma.
Maharaj, I heard the
And
example.
maybe if they're living in a old-fashioned, nice, pious, small city in South India, it's maybe better that they stay there than come here. But in any case, I know, for example, let's say amongst our young men who are the young men who are members of the Melbourne Mahaprabhu community, and I know for a fact they're having problems with their PR or their English test. They'll get help from other devotees. They'll get practical material help, along with the spiritual knowledge given that you do your best and depend on Krishna. But it's not that everyone just says, we don't care about your material situation. You're a devotee, be transcendental. No, they get help. Right? We give the young men career advice, all kinds of advice. How to live a practical life so that they can be peaceful and practice bhakti. But we always know that the material advice is supplementary. It will not actually solve your problems. But we want devotees to, as much as possible in this world, have a problem-free life in a world full of problems. So we give that advice. I do it all the time. Devotees give advice about where to live, where are the areas in Melbourne that are a good place to buy a house. All that kind of advice is going on, but we just don't take it as the most important thing. You understand? Marriage advice is given. So many of the young men, they are always asking, Swami, my parents, they say my time has come. They say, when I come back to India, they have some girl for me. Oh, Swami, what should I do? So we give advice. So we are not against giving advice that supports a bhakti lifestyle. So many of our members have practical advice how to arrange their lifestyle so they can serve Krishna. So why shouldn't they give this practical advice? They give job advice, advice about studies, about where to live, marriage advice. All that's necessary in a human society. At the same time, though, you can never make this world problem-free materially. The only real solution is that we become Krishna conscious. But while we have these material bodies, we should take advice about how to best proceed in this world so that we can peacefully become Krishna conscious. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
All right, no other questions? Should we have some kirtan? All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.